Love seeing your faces. Thank you for turning your cameras on. I am in Los Angeles right now, so it is 7:30 in the morning. I would love if you drop in the chat, let me know where you all are. This is the second day of the Creativity Conference and my second presentation, and I'm just really enjoying it so much. So today we are going to talk about taking action and the power of one. Wow, we have New Hampshire, Maryland, Texas, Switzerland, amazing, Jersey, we're everywhere. I love that. So, I'll just get right into it. As the host said, I am an actress, a writer, podcast producer of sorts, as well as a permaculture instructor. I'm from Boston originally, but my creative path has been multi-varied. I was an actress, a writer, an agent at different times. But back in March of this year, I started a podcast called The Healing Humans. And it was my own podcast that I created, that I host, that I write. And its focus was on highlighting people making positive change for the planet and its people. I'm extremely passionate about sustainability and the planet, as it were, the climate crisis, but more than that, this beautiful planet that we live on and taking care of it. So I was really feeling overwhelmed by the current state of the world, everything from climate change to the pandemic and everything in between. It's felt really, excuse me, it's felt really kind of crazy for the past year and a half or so. And I couldn't find an outlet of hope. I was sitting at home, as we all were, working from home, just looking on the internet and feeling so overwhelmed by stories of bad stuff. I couldn't find something that felt good, something that felt full of potential. So I decided to make one. So I got to work on discovering people that were doing good things all around the world. It's amazing that when you take the time to look, you will find people doing amazing things in just about every corner of the globe. So this podcast got started. My first interview was with someone named Billy Lee. She was a trans vegan activist who started a company called She's So Vegan to enlighten others about the cost of a meat-heavy diet, the small things people can do to lessen their carbon footprint. And last time I looked, her She's So Vegan brand had over 10,000 followers and counting. The next person I got to interview on my podcast, The Healing Humans, was a guy named Chi QC. And he was a young, early 20s Black and Korean guy who makes one-off fashion pieces from recycled vintage clothing. He infuses his clothes with his passion for God, which is his personal ethos, and his care for people, specifically hoping to champion a fashion industry that does not rely on child labor. Last time I checked on him, he had quit his day job and was fielding orders full-time for his line, Love of God. And then I most recently sat down with a musician named Beattie Wolf. She's a British songwriter and musician who has been called a visionary weirdo by Vice magazine. She's launched her music into space. She's sewn the titles of her songs into a literal jacket. If you're old enough to understand, this was an ode to the iconic album jacket of the good old days when we had literal albums and CDs. And as we were talking, I asked her if she thought that art had a responsibility to address the issues of the world. And she said yes, that music and art and creativity for the sake of itself is beautiful, but that art should aim to reach and to teach and examine. And that's the art she wanted to be part of, and I want to be part of. So my point here today with you guys is really just to talk about that, the feeling of, if the work we do, I know as creatives, it can feel like, I do this for myself, but is it going to change anything? Can I change anything? Can I make an impact? And it was no surprise to me that, sitting down with Beattie Wolf, who I met at the Nobel Prize Summit, which was a couple months ago, she was singing a song titled From Green to Red. And it's a song that speaks about the abrupt effect human industrialization has had on the planet. And it kind of just talks about the power of one person, one song, one idea. Uh, and I believe, especially now after starting this podcast whose purpose was hope, that there is so much power in a single individual. As we've seen over the past year and a half or 2 years, or even 4 years or 8 years, 10 years, depends on how far back you want to go. But the power of one person, they have the power to start a war or to end it. They have the power to discover disease or discover its cure. They have the power to say things that many are thinking, but most are scared to say. And there's really bravery in that start, in that beginning. It takes so much courage, and it can be, so hard to do, but it makes all the difference. So I'm sure you guys have all heard of the butterfly effect. There was a movie with Ashton Kutcher that made it very famous back in the early 2000s. But the idea is that, a butterfly flaps its wings in the Amazonian jungle, and it causes a storm to ravage Europe. That a tiny ripple or a stone thrown into a lake can and will push out a ripple of effects that can change the world. This is the quote that I just pulled that from Neil Gaiman. It used to be thought that the events that changed the world were things like big bombs, maniac politicians, huge earthquakes, or vast populations. But it has now been realized that this is a very old-fashioned view held by people totally out of touch with modern thought. The things that really change the world, according to the chaos theory, are the tiny things. A butterfly flaps its wings in the jungle, and a storm ravages in Europe. I really enjoyed that quote as well. Jay Shook. I don't know what your first name is, but very powerful. If you guys look in the chat, he just said his book Sandman is available on Audible. Great writer, talks a lot about stuff like today's speech. So my presentation today, as I was preparing it, it was a feel-good one. It's take action. We can all make a change. But, and I hope you take what I'm saying to heart. But more than just a feel-good one, I want you to know that there is a depth to it, that you as a single solitary human can make a huge change on this planet. And I'm not saying it to just be inspirational or to blow hot air. So take action. Do the things you've been putting off because you think that they're too big or above you. Start by writing that book or starting that movement. Just begin. Begin. Not with the goal of changing the world, because that is never the goal. It should never be the goal. But with the knowledge that you just might. My podcast, The Healing Humans, is an ode to people like that, people taking action, determined to change their own town, their own city, their own corner of the world. Jay Shook, you're funny. We should flap our wings. Everybody flap your wings. Can we just flap? If we just create some air, we are starting the next, hopefully powerfully healing storm somewhere in the world. When all these things come together, we have a future that is infinitely brighter and infinitely more human. This podcast was my action. It was my first step towards the world that I want to live in and that I want to believe in. It was my flapping of my wings. And it's already connected me to so many great minds. It was really one of the primary reasons I got involved in the creativity conference, to connect with people like you. I can't see what this conversation today is going to cause. We can't see the ripples going out, but they are. And I can feel, sitting here with you today, that there is hope of a brighter future, of a different future, because of us sitting here. And I can feel that. Can you? Thank you, guys. I also want to say to everyone watching, if you are taking action and you have a project or a story that you want to share with the world, please reach out to me. I'll drop my contact information in the chat. I would love to feature you on my podcast. And if you like podcasts, I would love for you to check out The Healing Humans wherever you get your podcasts. That's on Spotify, Apple, Google. It's everywhere. And you can find me on Instagram. Podcast Instagram is thehealinghumans.pod. And my personal handle is goddess earth _. And now I would love to just chat with you guys. You guys have been saying here, I'm dropping the link to the actual podcast in. I would love to just chat with you guys and read these comments, and please feel free to ask me questions or just make comments and let's just chat. That's been always very.
I allowed everyone to unmute yourself if you want to talk one-on-one and actually be able to say something. So you can do that now.
I see in the chat Burial Dean, who I believe I know from my days in New York. Hello. She said, my husband always told me that now she honestly believes that one person can make a difference.
Yes, hi, Christine. It is Letitia. We do know each other.
Wow,
Hi.
amazing. Hey, how did you end up here today? Was it through me sharing about it, or is it just a happy coincidence?
It was actually through you sharing about it. I saw your post on LinkedIn, I believe. Yes.
Amazing. That makes me so happy. These social networks actually work.
Yes. And I was like, I have to check it out because I know her, and we go way back, and I was just interested in what you were doing now. So I check it out. And
yeah, let's stay connected. Let's connect after this. That's great. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Hey, Christine, this is Jay Shu. It's actually pronounced Shu. And I was going to say, I have a lot of things that I've done and succeeded, but there are still things that I get afraid of. And I think fear is at the core root of why we don't take more action. And I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on that? How do you kind of overcome those fears? Because a lot of us have succeeded in different areas, but there's that thing that we haven't tried, that poem, that book, that movie, that thing, and we're having a hard time overcoming the fear. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because I agree with you. For me, fear is the biggest block to most creative starts. I won't even say accomplishments. And, for me, the past year and the pandemic kind of really put that into perspective. When I started the podcast, I had absolutely no experience really with podcasting. I had produced projects of various sorts, but I knew nothing about audio engineering. I knew nothing about recording. But, we entered the world of Zoom. I mean, look at us right now, we are Zooming. And I just literally woke up one day and I was I don't know if you ever get that feeling of almost feeling choked by your desire to do something, even in the midst of that fear. And I just said, you know what? F it. I won't say the curse, and I just did. I just reached out. My first interviewee she's a friend of mine. Who runs this company, She's So Vegan. And I called her and I said, listen, I'm putting it up. I made a website, on Friday, we're going to do a recording. And I just did it. And I was scared. I keep wanting to swear, but I'm not going to, but I was scared. And I was not even scared, but fearful. What's the point? I've never done this. I'm not going to do it right. It's going to be a waste. But I feel especially after this year we've been through, it's there is no time like the present. And we certainly aren't promised a future. And there's so many people out there just doing things, fearlessly. So why not add your voice to the mix? Why not try it and fail if you're going to fail, but do it anyways, So I call on you. I would love to talk more about what it is that you are scared of doing. I feel like you said, everyone here has accomplished. Even the most accomplished, writer might be scared to start learning guitar. Or the most accomplished actor is I can't paint. And it's really important. Yes, a banjo. Is that a banjo?
It's a ukulele. I taught
Oh, I
myself
love that even
ukulele.
more. That's great. Is that what you're learning? Is that what you want to start learning, or?
Oh, I've learned it. Am I good? No. Am I ever going to make any money at it? No. But I just do it for myself, and that's the first thing I've ever done creatively that I've said I'd never need to make money on it. And so that was something I've completely done for myself. You know, everything else you're like, okay, this is a return on investment. My computer, the classes, everything else. So for me as a creative, it's the first thing I've ever done that I say, no, I'm never going to play ukulele professionally. That's not my goal. It's just for me.
That's so important. I had my first presentation was yesterday, and it was called Obtain a Yield, the creative process through the lens of permaculture. So if you guys ever watch back over, you know, all these presentations, check that one out, because I talk about, in the world of permaculture, obtaining a yield is really important, right? Like you said, which is a return on investment, that you're gonna get something. But so is catching and storing energy. And we do that by doing things just for us. And for creatives, we so forget that. We're making this over here, we're making that over here, we're trying to make a buck. And I'm like, you know, for me, it's listening to podcasts in the morning that have nothing to do with like any of my projects. Like I go for a bike ride and I just put on like National Geographic, and I'm just listening, and it just fills me up with like, you know, and so good on you for having something that you have no intention of doing anything with other than enjoying it. You know, super important.
Hi,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, sorry. I just wanted to say something. My name's Janet. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I'm driving, so I can't post anything. And I was just listening. I was so grateful. I saw this in the schedule, and I was like, I want to be there to this one, yours. And I'm so grateful because, and I want to apologize for my picture. I use this Zoom for other meetings, and I totally forgot.
I love it.
So unprofessional looking. But I am a creative, but I'm also a spiritual, I'm an intercessor. And your talk was so inspiring in the sense of that the tiniest action from a little creature of the planet could create something so huge. And it just took me back to the concept of speaking or praying a prayer, a thought, and that the power, it only takes one person. And collectively though, you know, prayers and thoughts and speaking out together can yield such great outcomes and results. And just in my own individual process, and you know, we talk about fear and everything, but I recognize that my prayers and thoughts have yielded. It wasn't my outcome. I wasn't the one doing anything to make it happen, but my prayers, I got to see fulfilled by other people. Wow. So my thoughts and ideas, I get so many ideas. They range from creative, like, you know, industry, entertainment, to social causes and, you know, things like that. And I go into depth with them in my mind. Sometimes I write them out, the details, what it's going to take for this to happen, this, make this, and da-da. And it's so exhausting just thinking of it and writing out. And I stop because I'm like, this is so much work. I can't do it at all. But I'm so motivated when I run into people or hear about and see projects that are fulfilling what I thought of and wrote out. And so I feel like just that tiny step I'm doing is going into a bucket of people that are thinking of the same thing, but have the whatever resources, the stamina, the whatever, the different skill set to make it happen.
Yeah,
so there's that thought.
I agree
and
with
then
that
finally,
so much.
I wanted to say about the butterfly, that the butterfly just did naturally what it does, and it created something. And it brought me back to what all I need to do is to keep doing what comes naturally to me, not something forced, and things will happen. But I also was thinking, gosh, what did England do to make that butterfly so mad? Okay, thanks so much.
Yes, of course, Janet. I just want to say, like, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's important as a spiritual person myself, the power of thought and the power of words and speech are hugely underestimated. And I do believe, because that happens to me as well, where like I'll have a project, literally like I'll write a film or I'll, and like a year later, you see literally the manifestation of what you were thinking of, and you weren't able to get to it, but you were a drop in a bucket of collective consciousness. And I think we're always communicating. These ideas are always, and it always hopefully ends up with the person who can achieve it. So thank you for sharing that. That's super powerful.
Just a quick time update. We have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
I have a quick question for you, Christina. I wanted to know, how do you, all of the making change requires energy. And I'm wondering, how do you replenish your well, your creative well, your spiritual well? How do you find the energy to get up the next day and do more, make more progress? Because I think a lot of it, there are so many different things that are requesting our time and our resources. So how do you organize your thoughts into being like, I need to prioritize this, but I also want to make time for this?
Yeah, that's a good question. In terms of replenishing myself, again, I'll refer to my presentation that I had yesterday, but I really believe in permaculture, which is the idea of sustainable and regenerative systems. So, I'm not a big fan of the self-care thing that's like, burn some incense, get a facial, get a massage. I think those can be great for some people. But for me, it doesn't really replenish anything. If anything, it's like an escape. So, as I was saying before, for me, I love doing things. It's extremely important for me not to get burnt out, for me to take time every day where I'm doing something that is not connected to my creativity. Like I literally have a brain that I go to sleep thinking about my projects and I wake up thinking about my projects. And I was like really burning out doing that. Like at first it was like exciting. I was like, oh, I'm so creative. Like I'm always on. And then like I was like hitting a wall. I was like, oh my God, I wake up exhausted. I wake up just like overwhelmed and not knowing where to start. So what I do now is I make a point. It's a practice. I don't know if you meditate but I wake up, I do not plug into my computer. And as I said, I go for a bike ride. And on that bike ride, I try to either listen to music or listen to news or podcasts, but things that are not connected to anything that I'm doing. So like if I'm working on my podcast, The Healing Humans, I'll put on like a podcast about whales, or I will, listen to some abstract music from Uzbekistan that has nothing, that's not going to use my brain. And I do it with the intention of enjoying it. And the second I let myself have that time, really like I'm riding my bike and I like a work thought or like a creative thought will come in. I'll be like, nope, we're not there yet. It's still 8 a.m. I'm relaxing, I'm writing, I'm looking around, I'm breathing. And I just think being present like that is super important. And so in terms of prioritizing, I think that should be your top of the day. Connecting to yourself, getting calm, feeling good, and giving yourself creative juice that is not connected to your projects. And then after that, then you look at your schedule and you say, all right, what does this day look like? Not, oh my God, I woke up and I'm still running off of last night. I want to kill myself because I know that feeling. And so, yeah, I think really just taking intentional time for yourself, truly yourself is the best and only way to deal with that. Don't be plugged in all the time, It's hard. I know it's hard.
Well, I think we have room for one more question. If someone wants to say something or type something in the chat.
I'm going to drop my email address in real quick. If you guys, again, as I said, if you have projects you're working on, I would love to interview or just chat more. I know we're all part of the Creativity Conference now, so we can also chat there. I really use this platform to stay connected. I love this community because it's the first one where it's simply just to do stuff like this, to chat and connect and bounce ideas off each other and figure out how we do it. So please send me an email.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Christine, do you do mentorship? I would love to hire you as a mentor.
I did. Yeah, I do. I do some coaching. I don't like, yeah, I don't love calling it coaching, but I do. We can definitely explore that. Did you
That
take
was
my
our team email.
Yeah, please send me one. It's just my name, Christine, period, Ahanotu @gmail.com. I would love that, Janet. Let's talk more, okay? Yeah, you're muted.
Okay.
So. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we are hitting time. This was really enjoyable, and I hope I see you all in the other sessions.